So this is my Facebook rant of the week. Somebody I know and respect, this week on Facebook, they shared something in a comment on something else. And it was about the town that I live in. And what they said, basically, to paraphrase them, was Shelburne is known by some of the bad things that have happened here in the past. Shelburne is known by its crime. Shelburne is known by its racism. Shelburne is known by its poverty. Who we were is not who we are. Who we were is not who we will be. But who we were can often be the beginning of an incredible story of redemption, of success, of prosperity, and of abundance. My name is Ed Trevors. I'm an Anglican priest in the Diocese of Nova Scotia in Prince Edward Island, and I get to live in the beautiful, wonderful, awesome, amazing, loving town of Shelburne, Nova Scotia. It's found on the south shore of Nova Scotia between Bridgewater and Yarmouth. If you're ever down this way, you've got to stop in. Great food, great people, a great harbor, great sailing, great weather, great people. I know I mentioned them twice. I also get to serve in the amazing, wonderful parish of Christ Church, Shelburne, that sits on the ancestral and the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Now, if you've watched my videos, you'll continuously hear me say that I get to live here. It's because I'm not assigned here. I don't have to be in Shelburne. I could at any point reach out to my bishop and ask him for another parish, but I don't. I could go to another diocese, but there's no way. I get to be here. I am blessed that this is the parish that I get to work in. I am blessed that this is the place where I wake up every day. Now, my friend's statement isn't untrue. That is a perception. That is a perception that comes from the history of this place. But our history isn't who we are. It doesn't have to be who we are. Our history isn't the standard that we should strive to achieve. It's not the gold ring we're supposed to be reaching for. Our history is exactly that. It is the past. See, Shelburne is a loyalist town. The loyalists were a group of people who left the United States after the American War of Independence, the American Revolution. The loyalists were people who were loyal to the king. They didn't want to accept rule in the Republic. Rather, they chose to move to Canada, where the king was still the sovereign. Shelburne, however, has a second, has a different type of loyalist. And it's not a type of loyalist that you read about in the history books. It certainly wasn't when I was in school. I had never heard of this group of people until I moved here. And they were called the Black Loyalists. These were former slaves. Most of them were former slaves who fought for the king in return for their freedom. So they fought for King George against the revolutionaries, and when the war was over, they were given their freedom, and they were put on ships with the loyalists and sent to Canada. Many of them landed here. St. John, New Brunswick was our loyalist center when I grew up in New Brunswick. But Shelburne was another place. Halifax was another place. There were many places along the Atlantic coast in Canada where loyalists settled. And the black loyalists came here. Now, just because they were loyalists didn't mean they were accepted as equals to the white loyalists. They weren't. And indeed, Shelburne is home to, I want to say it's the first race riots of North America. The wealthy here in Shelburne at the time were paying the black loyalists to do their work. Because they were of African descent, they were paying them almost nothing. And the white loyalists who couldn't find jobs were going hungry, and they decided that they were going to blame the black loyalists for it. Violence and chaos. It's not a proud moment in Shelburne's history. Shelburne also has experienced racism since that day. People of African descent here, people of black loyalist descent here, over the last couple hundred years, have experienced racism on a regular basis. The native population, our indigenous population, the Mi'kmaq people, have experienced racism, have experienced white supremacy through our residential schools, through our handling of the traditional lands, through our handling of our resettling of their communities. These aren't things that we're proud of. But here's the point I'm trying to make in all this. I'm not trying to regurgitate and rehash all of the mistakes that we've made. I want to recognize the mistakes that we've made. I want us to see them as cracks in a beautiful piece of pottery. I want us to see them as breaks in this beautiful, wonderful piece of pottery. And then I want to fix them. I want us to come together. Despite the breaks, I want us to come together and I want us to gel together. Because those breaks don't have to be sources of shame. Those breaks can be sources of beauty. They can be sources of strength. They can be sources that they can be images of character and of perseverance. They can show the world where we've come from. There is this Japanese, and I apologize right now, I may butcher the pronunciation of this word, but there's a Japanese art form called kintsugi. And what they do with kintsugi is when you take a beautiful dish that's been broken and they mend it, they put it back together using precious metals. And they'll use gold they'll melt gold and push these two pieces of the dish back together. And then they'll use melted gold and they'll push the other pieces and so what you end up with is the dish reformed and reconnected. But now where there were cracks, you see these beautiful gold lines, or silver or platinum or whatever other precious metal they choose to use. And so a beautiful dish isn't discarded because it's now broken, but rather it's been put back together using something precious. And it becomes not just a dish, it now becomes a piece of art. it now becomes something precious, something that even more love has gone into recrafting and reforming. That's who we are. That's who we can be. We can be the community form of kintsugi. Yes, we've had horrible things here. Yes, we've had racism. Yes, we've had violence. Yes, we've had crime. Yes, we have poverty. But those things are just breaks. They're just ways that our community has broken over the years. With love, you and I can rebuild our community. So that when the world looks at it and they say, oh yes, but you had a race riot, we can say, yes, we did have a race riot. Here it is. This is how we've dealt with it. This is what it looks like now. This is how that race riot has been used to create an image of beauty. Well, you've had environmental racism. Yes, we have. We have had environmental racism. We have had poverty. We've had injustice. Yes, we've had violence and crime. Those things have broken our community. But look at how our desire to love one another, look at how our desire to be there for one another, look at how our desire to reconnect with one another have made those breaks even more beautiful. Yeah, historically, Shelburne is known for some things, for some sad things. And yes, those sad things have broken us. But we as a community, we can turn those breaks. We can turn those breaks into something precious. We can turn those breaks into art. We can turn those breaks into something beautiful. That when the world looks at us and says, well, you were known for this or for that, we can say, yes. Yes, we were, and look at how beautiful that is now. Look at what we've done with it. Look at how far we've come. Look at how we've grown. Look at how we've endured. Look at how we've excelled beyond this. Look at how we have moved on. Look at how much stronger we are as a people. May God bless you. May God keep you. May God make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. And may God lift up his countenance upon you and forever. May you forever know the peace of being in God's presence. And I pray that you and I, we can take all the breaks of this world patiently, gingerly, lovingly, put them back together so that when an outsider looks at them, they don't just see damage. They see beauty in the repair. Amen.